to There's a Workshop for That. Today's guest is someone I first met in March at the Inclusive Facilitation Exchange in London. And let me tell you, within 5 minutes of talking to her, I knew we needed to have this conversation. I knew I would like that girl. She's pretty. She's very kind. She's lovely, smart, and she has this humor that really makes me laugh every time. I'm thrilled to be joined by Ceri Newton-Sargunar. Sargunar is right.
It's close enough. It'll do. We'll take it.
So Ceri is an interactions specialist, chaologist, and trainee neuroscientist who's just a bit nerdy, but in the best way, about helping teams work together better. With a background in teaching and a passion for making behavioral science useful for technical professionals, Ceri brings a sharp, grounded, and deeply human perspective to the world of facilitation. In this episode, we will talk about leading through the Perma-Crisis, a term that feels all too relevant in today's world. Welcome, Ceri. How are you doing?
Thank you, Natty. It's lovely to be here.
You are in London right now.
Just a bit outside of London.
I can recognize your sweet British accent. I'm so happy to have you here. It was so lovely to meet you in London 3 months ago. And we had in between a nice conversation about your work. And before we deep dive into our topic of the day, I would love to hear what is your background and what is your mission?
My background, goodness. My background is a really lengthy, convoluted, it's been a journey. So I began studying law and then I moved into teaching and then I got ill and so I retrained and studied psychology and then I got ill again and then I studied neuroscience, and along that journey I worked, I was a Samaritan for a period and a Samaritan trainer. I was a Scrum Master, an Agile coach, and all of these things came together and brought me to behavioral coaching, which and interactions consulting, which is what I do now. I still consider myself really as a Scrum Master in many ways. I'm there to facilitate a conversation, to help people use these better ways of working that we've uncovered along the way. But for me, the most important thing is ways to get teams talking. I think the work that I do, the things that I've seen, it's getting teams talking that is the thing that the glue that holds everything together. If you can't have a team communicating well and an organization communicating well, and I'm sure we'll explore what that means, there's no point in doing anything else because you can't make anything fit for purpose without good communication anyway. So I think that's my passion. It's the thing that I want to change in the world. It's the improvement that I would like to see. It's something that I strive to be better at myself. I don't think I'm perfect in this space, not at all. In fact, I have 3 kids and a husband, all of whom can guarantee that I still have work to do. So everything I learn, I pass on as I learn it.
Why do you think there is such a difficulty of communication between individuals?
It's a really good question. So I think we're really poor at recognizing, and we would have a better existence if we were better able to recognize that there is a gap between what I think, what I say, and then what you hear, and then what you understand as a result. And in between those two people, in between those two thought processes, there's words and there's, like your ears listen. But each of us has a different background, a different culture, a different history. We have different experiences, different emotional responses to words, to ideas. We build a different picture in our heads when we hear exactly the same words. And then it's down to, do you understand what I intended you to understand? Or do you understand something completely different? And do I have perspective? Do I know? Do I have understanding of what you understand? And if the answer is no to any of those things, that's it, we're screwed.
Yeah, it's really a thing that I saw that also in meetings, for example, when everyone gets the same information, but everyone goes out with a different understanding, thinking this was said, and actually a thing completely different was communicating. So this communication is really the heart of people understanding each other and work together, right?
Yeah. And I think it's compounded by the fact, so I call it the gap. Between us, there's a gap. But also it's made worse by, I think, most people, most of us, and I'm still working on this, and for a very long time, the same thing applied to me. And even now, I'm not perfect, but we don't even understand ourselves.
Yeah.
We think we know why we're doing something, and we
Mhm.
post-rationalize why we did something. But really, the real reason is beyond what we are aware of. And so we respond in ways, and we think that we understand why we're responding in those ways. But really, the real reason sits a long way below the surface, and we don't have visibility of it. And if we don't even know why we are responding in the way that we are, how can we hope to understand the other person? How can we hope to even have awareness of how we're responding? So yeah, metacognition, that awareness of my level of awareness, is one of the things that I like. I like working with people on that, because when you realize your own level of awareness or your lack of awareness, it's the start of the process, the start of the journey.
Yeah. Can you tell me, we will talk about leading through perma-crisis, and I'm not sure that everyone is aware and understand this word. Can you tell me what is perma-crisis?
Sure. So we are in an extraordinary period globally of instability.
Mhm.
So historically, of course, there have been pandemics. Historically, of course, there have been wars. There have been great events, great changes, regime change. What we have is all of those things together, combined with the onset of new technologies like AI that are hugely disruptive, hugely unsettling. Disruption is a way of business now. So even in your business, your job isn't secure. Your company isn't secure. The rate at which companies change and have to adapt what they sell, what they do, is changing at a rate that is unprecedented. We're not staying in the same places geographically. We're moving around a lot more. So that again feels unsettled. We're less connected as people. So social media, and being online, maybe, being sucked into social media, that's stopping a lot of the human connection that helps us to feel more grounded. We've got climate change, just that general level of threat underneath everything all the time. And then there's these geopolitical events going on a scale that is really unimaginable to us in our lifetimes. And we have come from one of the periods, the greatest periods of stability. And so for most of us, we don't have a reference point for uncertainty. Everything has been certain and secure and guaranteed in a way, job for life,
Yeah. Yeah.
stable family connections, family, all of these things have been secure for all of our lifetimes. And then in the last few decades, this is becoming more and more uncertain. So we don't even have some level of instability as a reference point to help us feel that we can cope with this level of instability. Just everything was certain, and now the rug is taken out from under our feet, and that feels very unsettling. So we don't even have the mechanisms to cope with that uncertainty. And all of those things together, that's a perma-crisis. So it's this permanent, ongoing, non-stop sense of everything feeling on the edge. I could fall off the edge at any minute, and I don't know when that's going to come, but it could come, and it probably will come. And we've all experienced a pandemic, so that we know it has come in the past. And, the world wars are in living memory, so that we know that has come, and there's an ozone layer, the hole in the ozone layer, so that we know that that environmental crisis, that has come, and extinction. So we have awareness and some level of experience, but we don't know how bad things could get. And I think this introduction recently of the pandemic helps people to see just how bad things could be, how treacherous. And so that feeling of uncertainty and fear and dread just sits underneath everything.
Yeah.
And you can't get, because there's nothing that you as an individual can do to change any of these things. That's the perma-crisis.
Could you tell me first what is the link between the work that you do in communication and navigate organizations through the perma-crisis?
Yes, of course. So I say about my work that I'm here to bring calm to the chaos. So by understanding myself and my responses to situations, I'm more able to see the reality of the world around me. So I think a lot of people exist in this place of the ideal world, the perfect world, where they think that the world should be. And I think this ideal world, it hurts us because we measure ourselves where I am now against this perfect ideal world. And none of us can be perfect, right? So when we're measuring ourselves against this completely unattainable ideal, or maybe it's slightly attainable, but if we attain a bit of it, it's not this picture we have, so it's not good enough. So when we're measuring ourselves against this, that again, we feel on top of everything else, we feel inadequate. That then makes us feel more unsettled, feel more unstable, feel more uncertain, feel more under attack. And so the work that I like to do is to help people see things as they are, see themselves as they are, and then begin from what is. Begin from who you are, begin from how you are. And I like helping people to see that who you are is not a bad thing. It's a beautiful, it's a magnificent thing. The person that you are right now has gotten to where you've gotten for you've used all of the experiences, all of the skills, all of the knowledge, the understanding, all of the capacity has taken you to this point. So you can't be that awful. Otherwise you wouldn't be here now having this conversation with me. Right? Not that it's special because it's with me, but the fact that, somebody is paying me to have this conversation with you is an indication that you're not doing that badly. Right? It's okay. But I think people are still stuck in this position of measuring themselves up, and that gives them this sense of uncertainty. It gives them a sense of inadequacy, and it gives them this idea that they're not capable of doing the difficult things that I know that we need to do together. So taking people through that journey, helping them to see themselves, helping them to then, once they see themselves more kindly, in a more grounded, a more stable way, that gives them a sense of inner calm. No longer am I trying to impress everybody or prove how good I am or show up to the world. Doesn't mean that I'm not going to work hard. Doesn't mean I'm not going to strive to be better. That's good stuff. We want to keep going with that. But it means that I can let go of this idea of the perfect world and actually focus on how do I take who I am and what I am and where I am and make that better. When we have that level of stability, that level of calm, inner calm, that's when we can then begin to have conversations with compassion, with understanding, with calm, with the people around us. That means that we're not then triggering them into these big emotional responses when we're speaking to them, because we have our own sense of calm. It means that we can take a moment to understand or to get more understanding about what they're saying, rather than having a big emotional reaction because there's so much threat within ourselves. That again brings a level of calm, because I'm willing to listen to you. You're then willing to listen to me. We can get more understanding in that conversation. When you say this, do you mean this or this? When I say this, I mean this. I'm trying to do this, not that, and not this other thing that hurts you. We can have these better conversations. We can get better understanding. That means we can have a better quality of work because we have that clearer communication, that clarity, that understanding, and that underlying sense of calm. We can't fix the big things. There's nothing we can do about the big things. But what we can do is give ourselves the ability to stay calm in the crisis, to hear other people and not be threatened by what they say, to experience events and to be able to pick the path through without losing our heads, without turning to panic, because we have that inner sense of calm, that understanding that I can cope with this, I can get through this, I have the skills, the ability, the capacity, I can take the next step and I can help people and I can take them on that journey. The analogy that I like to use is if you're on a beach and there's a giant wave coming, if you're standing on the sand and you're trying to help somebody else to get to their feet, when that wave comes in, it's going to wash you both away. In order to be able to help somebody else to their feet, you have to be stood on a rock. If you're stood on a rock, you have firm footing. Even when that wave washes around you, the rock will be slippery. Your footing isn't guaranteed, but you have some stability to be able to help that other person up onto the rock with you. And that's the work that I like to do with leadership. If you're not stood on a rock yourself, you're both going to get washed away.
How many time does it take for you to create this space where people start to think about themselves and then go the next step into the work in the group?
Exactly 73 minutes.
That was goes like, what? What is the trick?
No, so completely the opposite. I think it completely depends on the person that I'm speaking to. It depends on how willing they are to have the conversation with me.
Mhm.
I try and approach conversations without any judgment, without any assumption about the person that I'm speaking to. I don't think that there are bad people. I think there are hurt people and sad people and angry people and scared people, but none of those
Mhm.
make you a bad person. That means that there's maybe more work to do. And that's okay. That's why we're here, to do that work. But the journey that each person will take, it depends on each person, how much they are able to see themselves, how willing they are able to see themselves, how painful it is for them to see themselves. The more painful, the less willing, the less time they have to dedicate or are willing to dedicate to the conversation, the longer it takes. But really, when you actually have that conversation with somebody, it doesn't take that long. Once they are actually seeing themselves, it doesn't take that long for them to begin to have more compassion. Because I work a lot with engineers, and I think engineers try to be very logical, very matter of fact people.
Mhm.
And I like to explain these things. I use a lot of neuroscience to explain what's happening in people's brains. And I use behavioral science and psychology to explain what that looks like and what people see and why people have those reactions that they have. So I think once you actually go down that path, and once people understand that the things that they're experiencing, they don't have to feel ashamed for the emotions that they're having. These are neurological mechanisms. It's a flood of chemicals, neurochemicals and hormones. There's nothing you can do about that because it's an evolutionary mechanism that your brain kicks off to keep you safe. So that
Yeah.
initial flood, that initial emotion, there's no shame in that. You shouldn't be embarrassed. Everybody has emotions at work. It doesn't matter how professional you try to be, or how professional you think you are, or how much you think that you leave your home life at home and your work life at work. No human on this planet can actually do that. Everybody brings these things because your brain does that without you having any control over it. So once you understand that and you learn how to work with it, I think then it becomes less about trying to hide your emotions, more about recognizing them and working out how to deal with them, to take them forwards. And that conversation really doesn't take that long to get that concept into people's heads and to help them see why they're having the feelings that they're feeling and to not feel so bad about them. That in itself isn't too big a task. What they're willing to let go of, that's a lot more work.
Can I ask something? Are you doing coaching with this person or are you doing workshops? And in this case, do you have this previous conversation before the workshop with your participants so that you can prepare them for the group work before the workshop?
Yeah. So for me personally, I do offer workshops. I do run workshops. And in those workshops, the things that I give people are that understanding of what's going on in their brains so that they understand at a base level where those responses are coming from. And that's something that I include in, I think, every workshop that I can think of that I run. I think it's
Mhm.
really important to reduce and to remove the shame that we have around emotional responses.
Yeah.
We call people emotional like it's a bad thing. Every human being is emotional. So including that as part of every workshop is, I think, fundamental to the success of my work. If I'm coaching people, then it usually it features quite early on in the coaching work that I'm doing. The work that I do, I try and not only do one thing with an organization. Of course, if it's just a workshop that they're hiring me in for, that's fair enough. But I'll always spend some time to actually talk to people afterwards. And if there's anyone with a particularly pressing problem, I will always spend time to actually talk with that person afterwards to help them to work out how to implement and to ground themselves in what they've just learned and what they've just gone through. But yeah, in the rest of my work, I don't ever just do coaching. It's
Yeah.
coaching with consultation, with teaching, with presentations, with workshops, with hands-on do-it-yourself learning to put those things into practice. So yeah, I think if you're just doing one thing, then it's a very one-sided approach to a problem. And human beings are enormously complex, and you can't solve a problem with just one approach, just one way of looking at things. When there's a human
Yeah.
involved, you have to take multiple approaches.
Yes, absolutely. And I think when you are specialized in leading the people through perma-crisis, I guess this is a work that is not done in one workshop, but that is, I guess, a longer term collaboration with the organization.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it's not just one and done. I mean, it can be, but you won't see the results. I think if you're just having one workshop, really, it's not a good use of money.
Yeah.
It's a waste, really. You're not going
Because
to,
after the
you go
workshop,
on going, okay, and so now you tried this, now what do you see? Okay, so now that lets you see these other things. And this, this metacognition, this awareness of my own level of awareness, that happens over time. You can't just, one workshop, flick a switch, and now suddenly everybody sees themselves and will interact perfectly, pristinely with each other with only ever compassion and calm and patience. One workshop can't ever do that. All it can do is open the door that people didn't even realize there was a door. And now they can see that there's a door and they can open it. Oh, okay. Now we can begin to decide how we're going to walk through that door.
uh, can you tell me the biggest rewarding that you had through your work? Maybe you saw a team or a person really make the change, make the
Yeah.
shift. Maybe because for me, the impact of my work is not the money, it's most of the time when I realize that you truly help someone or help a group of people and that you really see in their eyes, "Oh, that
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
was." So can you tell me one of your story or one of your
Yeah. Yeah.
client without giving details, but
Yes, of
something
course.
that really touched you in your work?
So I have several. I have to
Yes,
pick
of
a
course.
story. So I worked with wonderful engineer, and she was deeply misunderstood by not by her team, by her team. So she was a senior engineer. By her team, they thought that she was fantastically supportive, really understanding of their needs. But everyone around her, outside of her team, they built this story about who she was and why she was showing up in the ways that she was. They painted this picture around her. People within her own senior leadership team painted this picture of her as she's just driven by her career. She doesn't care about what it is that we're trying to do or the organization or anything like that. And so, yeah, we had quite a few conversations to help her see how she was showing up, particularly with a couple of key individuals that she was interacting with, and how they would interpret how she was showing up, how they would experience her style as, I mean, she was very short, to the point, and she was no nonsense, which is fine. But the people that she was speaking to were less senior than her and maybe more threatened. And so they experienced that approach as aggressive, and they felt threatened themselves. And so they then built up this picture of her as being threatening and aggressive and only focused on her career and not really caring about anybody else. And they then told that story to the people around them. And of course, that then gives a bias, and people are then noticing, oh, yeah, she's showing up in this way and she's speaking to people in this way. So, yeah, we worked together to actually talk about, the differences between how different people were perceiving her, the impact that she was trying to have, and then the impact that she really was having, and what was the evidence that she could see for that. And the pivotal moment came when somebody came up to me and said, I don't know what you're doing with her, but it's working. Please don't stop. And then somebody else said, I don't know what you put in the water, but more people need it. And so this same person was in, so there was one particular leadership meeting. And in that leadership meeting, so it was a two-day meeting, everybody in the leadership team all got together. On day one, she would say something, and there was another person in the team that they really antagonized each other. And so she would say something to them, and they would respond with, that's never going to work. Why would you even suggest that? That's never going to work. And then they would suggest something, and she would say, that's a terrible idea. You're trying to sink the business. That's crazy. And then the first person would say, I remember the word specifically, you're toxic. You're toxic with this. Right. So that was day one. We then did some work together over the afternoon. I did an exercise with the whole team. We did some work to help people see each other and see themselves. But anyway, after all of this work that we did later in the day, we then came back together the next day. after some exercises, and we did an exercise over dinner as well. We came back together the next day, and in the exercises the day before, I paired these two together to actually have them together. Actually, I didn't pair them; they actually paired themselves. So they paired themselves. They chose to work together because they recognised that this was where there was the most friction. The next day, she would say something, and the other person, the other guy, he would say, "Oh, I really like that idea. I really like that idea. And we could do this." And she would respond with, "Yeah, and then we could do this, this, and this, and this." And then he would respond with, "That's a brilliant approach. Let's get together later and see how we can take this forwards." And they did this throughout the day. And everybody around the table, all of these other leadership in the room, like their jaws dropped, like, what has
What
happened?
happened?
Going on here. Yesterday you're toxic, and then today, yes, let's get this sorted. So that's, I think, my favorite story.
Yeah, I love those stories when people finally listen to each other, because I think this is the point, not interpreting, but just listen with openness
Yeah.
and trying to understand what the other person say, and not say like block everything. And
Yeah, yeah. And we had to, in this meeting, there's 12 people, and these 12 people are all sat around waiting for these two to have their fight. And no
yeah,
work is being done, no progress is being made in that moment. And everybody in the room is feeling uncomfortable. Everybody is less creative as a result. Everybody is withholding information because they don't want to get in a fight with either of these two. So they're not contributing as much. Their ideas aren't flowing as well. This is a whole leadership team. They've gotten together to find solutions to their problems, and they're getting nowhere because of this. And the difference the next day, the conversation is flowing freely. We have ideas, we have suggestions, we have options, we have people who are willing to be engaged. It's such a difference in how much progress we can make with all of those people, all of that money sat in the room for both of those days. Yeah.
yeah. Do you have a specific activity that you did in that day? Because I'm using the nonviolence
Communication.
communication from
Much.
Strategize. I was using this on cards with leaders and their team who were not communicating well, or they didn't understand each other. So doing this exercise, one thing that I can remember was very, very powerful. Maybe you have other tools that you are, or
Yeah.
other activities that you do?
Yeah, so I love explaining the hand brain to people. First off, I've explained this to you, but anybody who's
Yes.
listening can go and look it up. It's by Dr. Dan Siegel. He's got a great video that explains it. That's Siegel. Yeah, there's a video. This a model that you can take anywhere and use that sort of explains the difference between you in a calm state and you in this what he refers to as a flipped lid state. So when you're having this big emotional response, and how when you're in a calm state, you have access to the areas of your brain that give you creative thought and problem solving and decision making and rationality, really. And how when you're in this flipped lid state, the area of your brain that supports these activities is no longer being given as much energy. So energy is diverted away to the areas that help you escape a threat or perceive a threat more effectively. So you don't have access to those areas of your brain. And I think helping people to understand that and giving people that visual language of your fingers crossed over your thumb on your palm. And so maybe for anybody who's listening, so you take your hand, you hold it up in front of you, you cross your thumb across your palm, and then you close your fingers down over the top. Exactly, yeah. So that's your brain when you're in a calm state. And then to be in a flipped state, you just lift your fingers up, keep your thumb crossed down. So the fingers are the area of your brain that represents this creativity, this rational thought, this problem solving. So giving people that language means that then when they're in meetings, if they see that somebody else is struggling, they can actually just lift up their hand with their thumb across their palm and their fingers up to show, I think we're in a flipped lid state. Because if one person is in that state, it's affecting multiple people around the room. And it's not just that one person, it's actually everybody in the room who's, hearing the stress and hearing that stress response. So by doing that, it means that it's a shared responsibility. We can now see that we need to calm down and take a minute. So that can be a really powerful tool, both for workshops, but also for teamwork. I like taking people through the drama triangle, Karpman's drama triangle.
Mhm.
So for anybody that wants to go and look at that up, I'm not going to, well, I can go into detail if you want, but I don't know how much time you want to spend
Yes, yes,
talking.
yes. If you can just explain what it is, I'm
Yeah, of
curious.
course. So Cartman's drama triangle, it says that when we're under stress, when we're in any kind of stressful situation, we have a tendency to fall into one of three behaviors, one of three responses. So we either fall into this state of the victim. So it's a straight top and then two sides pointing down to a point at the bottom. So on the triangle, there's the victim at the bottom. And so this is where we think things like, oh, this always happens to me. It's so unfair. It's terrible that, why do I always have to be the one to sort things out? Like,
Yeah.
poor me, poor me. And then there's the persecutor and the rescuer. So at the top, the two sides at the top. So the persecutor is the one who says, it's all your fault. You always do this. How could you? You idiot. So it's not poor you, it's you're rubbish, you're useless. And then there's the rescuer who comes and goes, oh, don't worry, I'll save you. I'll sort everything out. You're not capable, but I can do it for you. So the idea here is that you suck. I don't suck. I can do this for you, but you suck. And so these messages that we tell about ourselves and about the people around us, they effectively, they negatively impact the outcomes that we get in those spaces. And so by understanding those, and there's no shame here. We all do this. This is just a normal human way to respond to a situation in order to make it safe for ourselves and to make it better for the people around us. So we think, so we tell ourselves. But this is an absence of metacognition, right? I'm not aware that I'm doing this, and I'm not aware of the impact of me doing this. But actually, by teaching people Cartman's drama triangle, people have more awareness of the ways that they show up. And so we can go through some different scenarios of maybe when they show up in these ways, and that awareness, that understanding, that little light bulb moment of, I can see why that particular conversation might be going badly, because probably when I'm being the persecutor, like, they're going to feel attacked and they're going to respond in that way. Or when I'm feeling the victim, I can see how it completely disempowers me. It stops me from wanting to be accountable. It stops me from being able to take any steps to resolve this situation. I can see how that's hurting me. Or I can see how when I'm going into that rescuer stance, I can see how I'm effectively shaming all of the people around me by calling
Yeah.
them useless and infantilizing them when they're perfectly capable professionals, and they might resent that. I can see how that might happen, and I can see how maybe that that sends a message that I think I'm better than you, and I think you're not capable. And so all of the work that we're doing in this space is what's the intent and what's the impact. So again, referring to the gap. Right. When I'm talking about these, when I'm having these responses, when I'm responding to the situation in these ways, I'm trying to make things better. That's my intent. But my impact is very different. And so then when I see that there's a gap between my intent and my impact, I can actually be more aware of my impact. I can be more aware of where that's coming from, of what I'm trying to do. But then I can take a step back and think, what do I really want here? Why am I doing this? What is it that I'm trying to achieve? And what would be a better way? What would be a more effective way of getting that from the people that I'm speaking to? So the question that I like to ask is, what do you need to be able to meet my need? And when I approach the conversation with that in mind, it completely changes my approach to how I'm speaking to you, to what I'm saying, to how I'm asking you to do things, or what I'm asking you to do, what I'm demanding of you, when, how, etc. And it makes it into much more of a collaborative conversation, because I need to find out from you what you need to be able to do this thing for me, rather than just going, give me this, do this, or you're rubbish if you can't. It creates a better conversation. So I like sharing that drama triangle. I think it produces great conversations.
The key is here in what you're saying and your approach and your tools is actually just make people aware on how we most of the time unconsciously communicate and behave.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that in the moment we start to be aware, or, oh, this is not what I was intended to do, or this is not the impact that I would like to have actually.
Yeah. And I think the
This is
problem is
where
that
people shift then. I think I really like in your approach that you bring them by that every one of us is doing this.
Mhm.
Now it's just you have a picture with these three angles. You have words and a way of how we behave. And then you get the people aware of, oh, when I'm saying that, actually this can have this impact on this person, and this is how they try. I guess you make some exercise after. How can you communicate differently, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I think what's really frustrating about this is that when you're in the middle of that conversation, you know that you're not having the impact that you want. You know it's not going the way that you want it. And you're so frustrated by that. But that frustration makes things even worse. And
Yeah,
what we do here is we give people the tools to recognize where they are and what's happening. And so they don't need to have that frustration, because instead they can see, I know what this is, rather than feeling, I think the feeling of frustration comes from being helpless in that situation. Like, I'm doing my
yeah,
best here. I am persecuting you the best way I know how, and still not getting me what I want. How irritating. And I don't have any other tools at my disposal. And so then I'm angry. I'm angry at you for not doing what I want, and I'm angry at me for not having a better way of doing this. And that
yeah,
frustration, that builds, and that's what contributes to everything that erupts afterwards. And the beauty of these tools is it helps you see what's happening, take a step back and go, okay, I can see that this approach isn't working. Let me try this other thing instead. And that's what I like to bring into those workshops, and indeed to coaching and to consulting work as well, working through the alternatives. What are the other things that we can do that's not working? And I like giving, like, there's ways of reframing things. So if you want this, how else can we reframe them to get better results from people? And like I say, I work with engineers, so it doesn't have to be about emotional fluffy
yeah.
stuff. Like, all of this is very logical. It's very common sense. Really, we're just, we're working out a logic problem. It's just an equation with a formula. So I like helping engineers to find the formula.
I love that. I love the impact that you have with your work, and the fact that you make people realize, and that they want to change afterwards. Thank you so much for sharing all that. We still have a few minutes, and I know that you are cooking something with the dear Jenny Martin. There
Yeah.
is a book coming up soon. Can you tell me a little bit about this book? What are you cooking, girls?
Sure. So I recognize that I am really terrible at holding myself accountable, and writing a book is really hard.
It is.
Horribly hard,
It is.
distressingly. I've been trying to write a book for years and it hasn't worked. So Jenny also wanted to write a book. She's got her own tool, Oopsie, which I highly recommend people go and look up if they're in the development world, certainly. But I'm writing my book about the worry wall. So we are meeting for a couple of hours every couple of weeks, and she will tell me about her book, and we'll record it and transcribe it, and that turns into her book. And I will then tell her about mine, one element of mine, and then we record it and we transcribe it. And that's how we're writing our books, to make the process easier. And so we're both trying to get out into the world a first version. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's just, when I describe it to you, what are the sorts of things that I would say? How would I describe it? How would you run it? So I'm going to be talking about a tool that I created. I based it off of, I think it was Tim Ferriss, and he did, I forget what he called it. And something like disaster planning, or failure planning, something like that. Anyway, I didn't quite like what he did with it, so I changed it, made it better, used it with a team, and got some good results. And I called it the worry wall. And it's a tool that I use to get teams talking. So teams often, even when they have retrospectives, they don't have the conversation that they need to be having. They're not talking about the underlying problems. What I often see in the teams that I've worked with is, if you imagine an iceberg, they are talking about the problems that are above the water level, just the visible things, the symptoms, though, not
Mm-hmm,
the
mm-hmm.
actual cause of the
Not the
problem.
roots.
And
Yeah.
I like to use the worry wall to actually look at what's sitting underneath, what's the contributing factors to these symptoms that we're seeing. And so, yeah, I'm writing a book. It's more of a facilitation guide, I would say, than a book, but I will include some of the psychology that I put into it. So it's very intentional. I've tried to make it psychologically safe. It's a very a very safe, a very easy journey into having those deeper, more difficult conversations. I tried to make the tool in a way that is unthreatening to people. So you have an easy version of the conversation. You exercise choice throughout the conversation. You decide how much you share and how much you talk about what you share. So that makes it safer to people, which makes them more able, more willing to engage. But yeah, it's a way of sharing what's going on for them, sharing the issues in the situation that they're experiencing without being threatened by that. And what I really like about the tool is that it takes away a lot of the shame um, about the issues that people are facing. Because one of the first things that comes up every single time that I've run it, one of the first two comments about the very first step of the worry wall is, I thought it was just me, and actually now I can see that I'm not the only one experiencing this. And even that in itself is such a powerful realization, because it takes away the shame of whatever I was worrying about. It takes away the fear that I'm an idiot or that I'm no good as a result. And so, yeah, I love this tool. I love it, the way that it helps people get these conversations out in the open, and to have them without shame, to have them without fear, without thinking that I'm a useless human being for having these problems, because now I can see that everybody else is having the same or similar problems, and now we can actually talk about them and decide what we're going to do as a result. So yeah, that's what I'm writing about.
Thank you so much for sharing your beautiful work, your beautiful mission, and so much humanity in what you are doing, so much understanding for people. And I just love how you do the things. Thank you so much, Ceri.
Thank you, Natty. I think it's the only way that we have any hope of saving the world.
So have a lovely day, and keep us informed about the book, okay?
Thank you so much. It's been lovely speaking with you. Thank you, Natty.
Bye bye.
Bye.